Hi, I'm Achsah Stout. I went by Achsah. Let me tell you the story of my life. I was born on November 14, 1889 in Rockville, Utah Territory, where fruit and vegetables grew in abundance. My parents loved their children and we had great sport with them. My father was David Stout and my mother Reddy Cox. They had 8 children together, but only 4 made it to adulthood. My father also had 3 other wives, who I called aunts. He had 21 more children, 12 of which made it to adulthood. All of us lived under the same roof in Rockville. My parents' home was well organized. I loved hearing my dad tell gospel stories. If we had differences, they were settled with a bear-like hug, no rocks or sticks were used. We moved to Hinckley, Utah at age 7. I loved jumping rope. Because of my sister Daisy's ill health, we moved to Bunkerville, Nevada for milder weather. The death of my baby brother Leland was a hard blow and saddened an otherwise perfect winter. I begged Mom not to let the men carry him to the grave. I couldn't bear the thought of him buried in the dark cold earth. In 1902, our family moved to the Mormon Mexican colonies at Colonia Juarez. My 19-year-old brother David came down with typhoid. He was so close to me. He was tender, kind, yet firm. My father came immediately. I thought my heart would burst with grief. I sobbed and cried the whole night. It was the saddest funeral I ever attended and the most heartbreaking experience. My father lost 9 children to typhoid or pneumonia in a span of 4 years. Would it ever end? Father fasted and prayed and we moved to different locations. We then moved Guadalupe, which was a small village. Some of the happiest hours of my life were spent here. We canned, dried, and preserved fruit. I got sick with typhoid fever, but my mother nursed me back to health. I kept myself fit and my figure trim with exercise each night. I was captain of the ball team and a dandy team at that. How I remember the Christmas party of 1905 where Calvin McComber asked me to the dance. I had to ask my mother. But we didn't end up going since he got typhoid and almost died. In the summer of 1908, Calvin and I started dating and continued through the winter as we attended the Juarez Stake Academy, and in the summer of 1909, June 24, were married in Guadalupe. 3 months later we boarded the train for Salt Lake City, where we were sealed on October 7, 1909, in the Salt Lake Temple. We then moved to Groveland, Idaho. On April 11, 1910 my first child was born. I felt the greatest thrill I had ever known, the most miraculous thing I had ever witnessed. I looked upon my newborn infant and thought what God had wrought. This is Marinda with my firstborn Calvin. My folks gave us a room in their home in Mexico to set up housekeeping, so we moved back. It was here that we were blessed by the birth of our second son Emerson. In 1912, the little town of Guadalupe experienced a terrible tragedy. Elizabeth Mortensen, our nearest neighbor, was raped, robbed, and finally killed. From this time on, we lived in constant fear. We kept one revolver in the east end and the other revolver was kept in the west end where we slept. How I dreaded the thought of ever using those guns. Practically every night I would spring up, grab the gun under my pillow prepared to shoot. We ended up being forced out of our home to return to the States as refugees. We had 2 small children and my mother-in-law Marinda. How my heart ached at leaving my dear father and brothers. We arrived in El Paso in the summer of 1912. As I stepped off the train, I saw our beautiful flag, the stars and stripes, fluttering up above me, in the gentle breeze. My heart leaped and my eyes filled with tears. Thank God for the flag and what it stood for: security, freedom and life. After 2 weeks in the lumber yard of El Paso, we boarded the train for Logan, Utah, where we stayed for 2 years, hoping to return to Mexico, but we ended up heading to Oakley, Idaho, where a huge earth dam was just completed. The 7 years we spent in Oakley were indeed happy, although hard times were still our lot. Calvin struggled with the dryland farm since the dam was unsuccessful. Arthur, Farrell, Winston, Adrian, and David increased our family to 7 boys. I made their clothes and they went barefoot. Here we began our weekly family nights in which the boys happily participated. What a joy and thrill it was to see each do their little best to perform. With a family of 7 boys, we felt it necessary to get on a farm. Luckily for us, we located a farm near Pocatello, where we moved in 1925. In 1927, we were surprised and delighted to receive into our family a baby girl, our last child and only daughter, Velma. "I'll bet she'll be spoiled," was the universal conjecture. I took great pains to teach my children to shun the very appearance of evil and to form good food habits. The church helped me shape the habits and character of my family. All that I or my family are or hope to be, we owe to our Heavenly Father and His wonderful church. It was not long after this that my husband built a frame house on the above farm. In 1930 we moved our family into the country and took possession of our new home at 2715 Pole Line Road. What a relief to get my boys on this land. We started the Macomber Dairy. We added Hotel Bannock to our route, which greatly added to our small dairy. We were now really in the dairy business. The next 15 years was one of madly rushing, father and boys running routes, milking cows, washing buckets, bottles, hauling hay, and threshing grain. The Depression hit and some people could not pay their milk bills. Our struggle continued, but we counted our blessings. I was strict on our diet with much fruits, vegetables, bran bread with hard crust, little milk, and little sweets and fats. I got word my father was very ill. I arrived at his bedside when he was in a coma. I wanted to tell him of my son's call to a mission. I knew how it would thrill him. He passed away without knowing of his grandson's call. 33 years we spent in Pocatello, Idaho. Our family entered the schools, were called to various missions, and filled responsible assignments in the church. When we first entered Pocatello, I prayed that our family would be a power for good and higher living in this town, and I'm sure the Lord answered my prayers in this respect. In 1958, we sold our brick triplex back to our eldest son and moved to 549 De Soto, Salt Lake City. We lived near the genealogy library. This arrangement worked out admirably. I looked forward to the Stout reunions where I would see my many siblings and their families. Oh, how the Stout family grew. Calvin and I went on the Southern States mission to Tampa, Florida. When we arrived back home, our family had scattered. Oh, how marvelous was our 50th anniversary, our golden anniversary. All my children came to celebrate, and how I loved to have everyone there. I spent some time in California with Velma's family, then spent the last years of my life back in Pocatello. In November 1970, with only an hour or 2 of discomfort from pain in her right eye, I got sick. Then I had a stroke, a major stroke. This was the first time I went to the hospital in my life. I died on January 15, 1971 in Pocatello. I am buried next to my husband in Wasatch Lawn Memorial Park in Mill Creek, Utah. I am Achsah Stout Macomber. I am a proud mother of 8 children who I raised in the gospel. I am strong, healthy, and strict. Thank you for listening to my life story.